embracing with a power and a strength. So that means you can try, it's not going to happen. And guess what? I'm not going to drop. It just shows me the character of Christ in his relationship to this message and or messengers. I love the fact that it's present tense, which means he's holding and will hold and will hold and continue to hold.
Nobody will pluck you out.
Nobody can they? Nobody can. Why? Because he's holding us right here. Now, he holds also is the one walking. Now, this word walking is interesting in that he is walking and holding. The verse paints this motion picture that he's walking and holding at the same time. And he's multitasking. He can walk and he's moving about and holding on at the same time. So these actions are happening at the same time.
He's in every church.
And he's in every church. With the stuff that's not great, with the tolerance of Jezebel, with the deeds of the Nicolaitans, he's still walking, even when those that are to be walking with him are not really as faithful as they ought to be. It's grace, isn't it? This is a powerful picture of how he's relating to the church. Maybe because I'm a pastor, I find it interesting to not just skip through this so quickly, but to say, hold on a second. I love this picture of how he's relating to the church. And also, because there's 7 churches, that also speaks of diversity. That means it's not one church, but it's 7. And Laodicea may not be like Pergamum, and Sardis may not be like Smyrna, and Philadelphia may not be like Ephesus. And so there's that diversity, there's that expression, and yet Christ is moving amongst all of them, and not saying, oh, if you're not like Ephesus, I'm not moving. All right.
That's true. Yeah. But there's still just one truth.
There's still just one truth. And we'll hear that. Okay, we'll get to that. That's exactly right. Now, I'm doing this for the church at Ephesus, but we'll discuss before we leave whether we want to, because most of the symbolism and more difficult portions of the book of Revelation begin in chapter 4. That's why I'm kind of hurrying up trying to get there. I've heard a lot of preaching in Revelation 2 and 3. I've not heard a lot of preaching in 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay? I've not heard a lot of people preaching those times. So I want to kind of spend most of our time there. But there's something in this church message to Ephesus that I think is interesting. Go to verse 2 with me, chapter 2. He said, now I know thy works. Now, immediately, I'm drawn to this word know. Because it's not the word for know that's often used in the New Testament to speak of mental assent. I know because I've experienced you. I know because I've been around you. That's not the word here. This is the word hoida, which is different from the word gnosko. Now, I'm not trying to bore you with this stuff, but just trying to thank you, Chet. You can tell I'm trying to, it's part of my exercise routine, to keep this stuff up here and kind of work around it like this. So we have this. We have gnosko, and then we have this word hoida. And the difference is, this is general experience, general knowledge, general. I know. He says, I know your works, I know your labors, I know what you do. But then you have this word is more of a special knowledge. It's not knowledge that's gained by experience. It's knowledge that's transferred into the knower. Peter, whom do men say that I am? And after a few attempts, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. Well, who told you? Who told you? Peter, this wasn't revealed to you by somebody, flesh and blood, but was revealed to you by my Father. So there's a knowing that's in your spirit, man. Well, Jesus was practicing this by demonstrating to us that he knows the word works. He says, I know. In other words, you can't fake me out. You can't fake me out. I know what you're doing. Look at the word labor. It means to work yourself to a place of sweat. And I tell you, there's a lot of sweating that's happening in the local church, and that is an expression of a curse. If you're sweating in church, you are outside of the garden life. That's good right there. You write that down. I'll come back to that. And he says, I know your patience. And I know you can't tolerate, bear them which are opposed to the Christ you know, evil. And you have tried. Look at that word, tried. Boy, this is interesting. This word tried means to test the character of a thing, the genuineness of a thing. It's found in the aorist tense, which means you did a purposeful trial, and you finished the task of trying. It wasn't that, you just gave it a little bit of attention and you reached this conclusion quickly. That's not what it means. It means you studied those that call themselves apostles. You studied those that are trying to give direction and movement to the church, but they do not possess the truth. They are liars. You have found them. You have discovered something about them. They're liars. Now, let's keep in mind what this means when you see the word small a, apostle. This is the word apostolos, and it's the word used to speak of a higher authoritative position in the church that gave a voice that was recognized, that literally would move the church from one position to another position. It's not just talking about those who want to come in and run the church, or those that want to come in and change the vision or just change the direction. No, it's those that are trying to change your entire manner of life, because they just say you're to change your whole manner of life. And it's like, who told you to? It's like Dawson. Somebody came in and says, after tonight, you're going to start meeting on Thursdays at 4 o'clock. And I said, okay. Why am I doing that? I don't know. I'm just telling you to do that. Now, see, that's kind of stupid. That's not ridiculous. That doesn't make any sense. But what was happening, these people were trying to change the focus and the direction. Let me get to the reality. They were trying to move the church away from the physical, literal death, burial, and resurrection of Christ, because they did not believe Jesus, God, could take upon a human body, because everything material was evil. They could not believe God would have died. They could not have believed that God would have risen from the dead. And so they're trying to persuade the church to get away from the belief that Christ could have ever been God. And this word gnosko becomes that philosophy, which is Gnosticism.
I'll just wait.
Hoida. I'm sorry. That's like an Hoida. Hoida. George, you have a question?
Yes. Were you talking about physical sweat or spiritual sweat?
Both.
Both.
That's a good question.
Because she was wondering about that. Could you explain that a little bit better, so she could understand that?
That's a good question. It's a word that means physical strength. Kratos is where it comes from. It means physical strength. So it's a word picture. It's a picture of somebody holding something that you can't take out of their hand. It's a firm grip. Mm-hmm. But because it's a spiritual book, it definitely has to do with a spiritual truth. That spiritually I can't be so removed. So if he is holding me, these apostles are coming and trying to move me. You see that? See, these apostles are trying to come and move me. But he's holding me, but the lying apostles are trying to move me. In other words, don't let somebody move you into a truth that has not been spoken to you by the Lord. Let me say that a different way. Don't embrace the truth that's not in the Scripture. That's a good question. You forgot about that.
Emphasize the second word up there. Hoide.
Hoida?
Yeah. When you're truly saved, you know it.
You do.
It's not that you know God, not that you know Jesus, not that you know the songs in the church. You know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the Spirit of the Lord is within you. And nobody can take it away from you.
You know.
Just like years ago, growing up, we were poor. We were poor. And we seldom had any fruit, apples and bananas and stuff like that. And so when I was real small, we went to visit a family, and they had the most beautiful apples in a dish up on the table. And when nobody was looking, I reached up and got me one. Went outside and tried to bite it, it was wax. So I proved it was false.
It was false. That's good. Really, I should be just have people on the microphone asking these questions for the purpose of the table.
Anyway, in the demonstration of the bottle, like, you can't remove that from your hand. So what would the attempt of the apostles if they couldn't be removed? That would have been...
I'll show you, man. I'll show it to you, man. That's a good question, and it's an excellent segue. So the verse says, I know what you're doing. I know how you're standing. And it's almost as Christ saying, I appreciate the fact that you just don't let anybody with a title adjust your life.
Amen.
So today, I go to 7-Eleven, give me this huge bottle of water that I drink every day now. And I get in the car, and I look in the mirror, and I notice that my glasses have a bunch of stuff in them. And I'm thinking to myself, man, how in the world can I see through these? And what happened was my perception became adjusted to what I was looking for. I didn't even see the smudge marks and all of that. So I took my glasses off and I cleaned them, and I thought, man, and I come back and I thought, wow, well, it looks so much better now that I cleaned my glasses. And immediately the Lord began to speak to me about perception. I often go to Dr. Taylor, who was a chiropractor, and I didn't know that I was so out of adjustment until I leave. And once I'm in adjustment and I'm adjusted and everything's kind of straight, wow, I feel like I can run and beat the car home. I tell my wife, when you drive, I'll run, I'll meet you back at the house. Because I feel like $1 million. But what happens, we become so accustomed to the disorder that we don't even know we have it anymore. And so what happens is, if we're not careful, we'll stop reading and perceiving truth and seeking after truth ourselves and just begin to let people with titles teach us. And we quit thinking for ourselves, which is the greatest crime in the New Testament church. We quit thinking for ourselves, and we just say, whatever you say, tell me, that's what I believe. And listen, I don't want you to go around and doubt everything I say, but I'm secure in what I teach. Search it out for yourself.
Amen.
I mean, really search out everything for yourself and come back and let's discuss it. But what happens is, and happened in the New Testament, was they were letting people with titles persuade them. Now, how were they letting them get them to the place where their lives were being altered? We're going to talk about that quickly. Let me get this. Here it goes. Verse 3. You have borne and has patience, and for my name's sake you have labored, and you have not fainted, which is the word you have not grown weary. In other words, that's a perfect, active verb, which means you have not let a progressive weariness, this is good, you have not let a progressive weariness take you over.
Right.
You don't get discouraged in your church Sunday. You get discouraged Sundays. We don't And so what happens here, he's saying you've not let the continual harassment of those with titles wear you out.